Hola, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días,
Welcome,
Janet, Ricardo.
welcome to
Hi.
the annual Congress session. What can UN regional commissions do to foster resilient PPPs? You know that the UN regional economic and social commissions do a lot in terms of PPPs. And so this session is there to bring together what are they working on, what are the tools and the products that are being used by them to facilitate and support PPP units in preparation of projects and their implementation. I'm very happy and wish all PPP professionals joining us this afternoon, Geneva time. For some of us, it's very early in the morning for this exceptional session that presents the work of the public-private partnerships in 4 of the 5 UN regional and economic and social commissions. My name is Jean-Christophe Barth, and I'm the executive director of the World Association of PPP Units and Professionals. This session is very dear to me because it's not often that it's possible to hear from various United Nations regional commissions in the same roundtable. My perception is that only few PPP professionals know exactly what the respective agendas are, and so I'm very grateful for our guests to enlighten us with the important work being done in the respective UN regions. In preparing this session, we have agreed on a sequenced approach. I will ask every speaker to introduce him or herself at the outset of their respective presentation. And we will start with Claudio Meza from the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, followed by Anthony Monganelli Malvana from the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Dr. Yaro Badr from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, and last but not least, Jeanette Larde and Ricardo Sanchez from the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'm now happy to give the floor to the representative of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, so we can learn about what is being done to help PPPs become more climate friendly and resilient. The floor is yours, Claudio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to present our work from the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. I am Economic Affairs Officer at the ECTD Division, Economic Cooperation and Trade Division, and we have been working on PPPs since about 20 years when we started. As a general introduction for those who don't know what an Economic Commission of the UN means or work for, is we are 5 sister organizations, each of them having a work in the regional level. In our case, it covers about 56 countries, member states, which are basically all what is known about European countries, plus the United States and Canada. And in addition to that, those former republics from the Soviet Union, like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Central Asian republics. So we are 56 member states. We developed standards, recommendations, guidelines, and other tools and artifacts that can work for the region as well as for the rest of the world. They can be considered as a free and open tools that we have prepared for the service of the international community. My presentation now is a specific project that we have developed. We call it the evaluation methodology. I'm going to launch now a presentation for you to make it a bit more graphic. Okay. We have called it the Public-Private Partnerships Evaluation Methodology for the Sustainable Development Goals. This is one of our tools. We have developed other tools, other standards, let's say, which allow us to reach and help the member states in their use and development of public-private partnerships for their own infrastructure needs. This particular tool we have developed to help the member states to make an assessment of their projects using guidelines that we have developed to make it to help a member state to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, to help them to better identify how their projects contribute to with infrastructure that allow them to reach such goals. We are based on the on what has been defined in 2015, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and its 17 SDGs when they were adopted. In using this Goal 17 partnership for the goals, we have applied all our development to help resolving this goal. The approach to PPPs for the SDGs as a new model that fit for purpose for the SDGs. All what we are trying to do through this tool is to help member states to move their interest, putting the people interest at their core, generating both value for people and value for the planet. The tool is based on 5 outcomes that derive from the SDGs as it concerns infrastructure. We can evaluate the projects by the selection of 5 outcomes and 68 indicators, and also 22 targets. Based on the outcomes of access and equity, economic effectiveness and fiscal sustainability, resilience and environmental sustainability, replicability, and stakeholder engagement. The main guiding principles on PPPs for the SDGs are the guiding principle to support the governments in design and implementing comprehensive PPPs policies and programs. The evaluation methodology has been recently endorsed 2 weeks ago by the Committee on Innovation and Public-Private Partnerships. So it is a public tool for free. Any member state, a private company, or even a civil society organization can make use of it as of now. It is based in an Excel table, which is easily for you to use. The 10 guiding principles for PPPs for the SDGs are among them. We have want to make sure that people needs are listened to and their needs are addressed, deliver more better, simpler PPPs for the SDGs projects by joining up government and allowing cities and other local levels to develop projects. You have the list of 10 there, which have been the main reference for us. And the methodology, it is a unique platform to score these infrastructure projects against the SDGs and the 5 people first outcomes. It is a unique initiative in the UN. As I said, we have 22 benchmarks and 68 indicators that allow you to assess the project to see how this project may score regarding having as a reference the SDGs. Among the 22 benchmark to assess the project, we said about access and equity. For instance, we have to provide how the project provide essential services, advanced affordability, and universal access, among others. Also, for economic effectiveness, we have identified on how to avoid corruption and encourage transparent procurement, maximize economic viability and fiscal sustainability, maximize long-term financial viability. Among the environmental sustainability and resilience, we have simplified a little bit this outcome to make it a bit easier for those who wanted to assess their project, because we collect some feedback from the final users, and they considered that it was a bit too much evaluating environmental sustainability and resilience, but we wanted to make it a bit more flexible, especially if you want to use the tool to assess projects that are already in place, operational, and but at the time that they were developed, they were not considering some of the issues that today are becoming more important to assess. In terms of replicability, we have identified for instance, encourage replicability and scalability, standardize PPP preparation and tender, and enhance government, industry, and community capacity. And also for stakeholder engagement, we have identified a plan for stakeholder engagement and public participation, maximize stakeholder engagement and public participation, etc. With all these outcomes and indicators, you have a table from where you can easily identify how much is the weight of this indicator in the final score you are going to get. The tool, as you can see in at the bottom line in the upper image, you can evaluate access and equity, economic effectiveness, environmental sustainability and resilience, etc. The 5 outcomes, and for each outcome you have different indicators that you can evaluate. The rate is from 1 to 5 or 5 to 1, being 5 an excellent evaluation, which means that it is the assessment you are making for this indicator, it is considering internationally agreed standard best practices and benchmark. You can use a 4, which means very good. You are following a national best practice and benchmark, and so on until 1, which is unsatisfactory, where the indicators is under or below average. This will allow you to get, in the end, a score with a result that will give you a total idea of how much the project you are assessing is giving you responses to what we have identified on how to better answer and to identify how this project contributes to the SDGs through the access and equity, through the economic effectiveness and fiscal sustainability, and through the environmental sustainability and resilience, replicability, and stakeholder engagement. Finally, you will get a set of comments that the system provides in terms of gives you an idea of how this assessment you have carried out for your project is explaining the results you got. I would like to tell you that we are planning to launch officially in the last quarter of this year. We will launch officially the tool. We are planning as well to use it with several member states that have requested already to start getting capacity building to use the tool to better assess the project. And also we are discussing the way this tool is used to have a kind of fast track assessment for projects that will be contributing to the recovery of Ukraine. We have received this formal request. We are looking at the tool on which way we can contribute to produce a solution that can be easily used at the time that the conflict is over, to put PPP forwards to help in the reconstruction of the country. We don't foresee yet to make it a lighter version of the tool. We think that the tool will be, in fact, a good opportunity to use it and to help decision makers in Ukraine and other contributing countries that will probably help to the reconstruction to make it easier in a way, not to follow a full set of measures to assess the potential projects that will be developed there. In my presentation, you have the link here, as you can see, to get the whole package of the Excel tool, plus the user guide on how to use it, and some reference, which is indicated on the screen now. I would stop here, and I remain ready to answer questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio, for this amazing presentation on this tremendous work to transform and make more sustainable PPPs happen with this evaluation tool. I think that's a really interesting methodology. We're now going to go to the Africa Economic Commission, and I'm going to share the slide. Just a second. I think it's this one. Okay, here's the deck. Please confirm that it can be seen. Yes. And when you're ready, just go ahead, Mo.
Okay, can you put it in a presentation mode?
It is in presentation mode on my screen.
Oh, okay. In my screen, it does not.
No, I think you have chosen the other version, Jean-Christophe, the source version, not the presentation mode. Thanks.
Is this working now? Is it working now?
No, it's still
the source.
It's funny because I'm not able to change it here. Enable editing, maybe no. Is this working now?
No, completely disappear from sharing.
Sorry, try again. No?
It's displaying. No, it's still the source. Best way, Jean-Christophe, launch the presentation and...
It's launched. I'm in the presentation, it's launched, and then I click on share presentation mode, no? Can you see the screen?
Yeah,
I only see my screen. Can you see it now, Monga?
No, it's still the same. You know, I thought that because of I'm concerned about the time. Maybe it's I'm not sure whether everyone is seeing it or will have trouble.
No,
you know, seeing this version. So I thought that we should actually begin.
You know what? I'm going to convert it quickly to a PDF, and then I will share it.
We can see your screen, but it's not in presentation mode, and I think you're switching the...
I know I'm trying, but it's not working. It's not working.
So we can just maybe, you can stop sharing, and we can move on.
You can already start, Monga, and I'll catch up with
Okay. Perhaps like I should actually do whilst you are still doing it. My name is Anthony Mongameli Mehlwana. You know, I'm based in Addis Ababa for the Economic Commission, you know, for Africa. You know, under a sub-program called Private Sector Development and Finance. In terms of the subject at hand, for us at ECA, you know, particularly the sub-program that that I fall under, we are concerned about infrastructure development in Africa. And particularly now, post-COVID. And then now there has been, we have an overall framework in Africa for infrastructure development, which is called the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, which is PPP. So this, it's a framework that guides how infrastructure is developed, also sort of the kind of models that are followed. And in many instances, in all the instances, it follows a PPP model, of financing the infrastructure, because these are the private sector and public institutions coming together for infrastructure. We've come now to what we call PPP2, which is is the second phase of PIDA, which includes, inclusiveness and sustainability. That is the gender sensitivity, rural connectivity, climate resilience, within sort of that inclusive PIDA. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I want to talk to a specific intervention, of ECA, that we've started just in the year of the COVID in 2020. It's a pilot PPP work that we are doing in 6 African countries. These are there in the map. You can see them. It's Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Malawi, Uganda, Zambia. So these are the countries and Kenya. These are the countries that we are doing this work on. And then we are also implementing this, because as a UN and delivering as one, we're implementing it with our sort of UNRCs, that is the UN resident coordinators offices, in all of these countries. Next slide, please. So that, just to give a little bit of a context, just very, very, very briefly. We know that we have a growing infrastructure deficit, which has been compounded now, by the advent of COVID, and where in the past, the public sector used to fund most of our infrastructure development. So now there's been a dwindling of that. And then also we do know that, infrastructure is at an apex, of the Build Back Better, approach in many countries. And also we've just established an African continental free trade agreement, which will actually integrate the continent through trade. But this assumes that our infrastructure, is sustainable, and then it can withstand, that way. And in the past, or currently, we have a history of failed and ineffective PPPs. So the other sort of, I'm not going to go through that. These are the impacts, of not having a very good infrastructure on the continent, high manufacturing cost, and also that we are not really competitive in a global value chain. The increasing informalization of our economy, where you find that the majority is there because the infrastructure doesn't support to formalize the economy, and also the increasing sort of infrastructure services that is coming up, and also the investment gaps. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go through what is it that is our response. We have started an initiative, with other UN organizations within the continent, as well as our sort of development partners. We wanted to strengthen, the capacities, of stakeholders as a means to offer innovative, as that the PPPs, can be sort of adopted as one of the innovative means for financing infrastructure development, in support of industrialization. We have 2 outcomes. The first outcome, is directed at policymakers, on how we can strengthen their capacity so that they can actually formulate the PPP frameworks in line with the PPP laws and selected countries, because that's one of the weaknesses in our due diligence, that our policymakers are not able to interact in a very complex sort of terrain of PPPs. So one of the outcomes that we want to have, for instance, currently, the countries are developing their national action plan, for these PPPs, and then they will actually have that. And then the second one, is to harmonize, create a harmony between the PPP framework and the PPP law, so that to make them robust enough. And then also, these PPPs, has to conform and adopt, international tools and standards. I won't go to the means of verification. I just want to give you a flavor. Next slide, please. So we have various outcomes, to what we've done, and currently we've done the PPP diagnostic report, where we look, at the PPP situation in Africa, including, whether the PPP are inclusive or not, or whether they are climate resilient or not. We have sort of these 6 very, very good PPP diagnostic report, which will kind of serve, as a baseline, for further actions. Currently these are well received at the country level, and they've been validated, and countries have developed their national action plans. In the next coming weeks, we'll be looking at these national action plans with a view of actually pinpointing, some of the sort of the technical assistance that we can give, to these member states. Next slide, please. The second outcome, is directed at PPP units. We, all the countries that we are working in, have established the PPP units, but really, most of them, they lack the capacity, to identify and structure projects that conform, to the innovative people first PPP models. So this is what this outcome will serve, to capacitate these PPPs, and then so that they can be, at least, to come up with a pipeline of PPP projects, that conform to, to inclusiveness, and climate resilience, or people first PPPs, and then also one of the lacking aspect, in Africa is a private sector participation. I'm talking about the local private sector participation. So therefore, we want to increase sort of the appetite, of local private sector institutions, into this. And then obviously, we are looking at one of the is how we initiate, or convene, the cooperative agreements for project development, for instance, through participation, in international PPP forum, for this, so that, they can actually increase that level of cooperation agreements that is North-South and South-South. Next, please. Yes, so we will be doing this through other ways. As I said, we are giving you the technical support, as well as the training on structuring and management of these PPPs, these inclusive PPPs, because the inclusive part is very, very important, as well as the establishment, of the forum for PPP units. Next slide.
This is the last slide I have.
Yeah, this is last slide. So this is just a flavor of our initiatives, and trying to support, a sector, a sort of an area which we have sort of a history, but a checkered history in Africa, of not so successful PPPs, but how we can turn it around and then ensure that we have successful, sustainable PPPs that conform, to inclusivity, climate resilience, also conform to SDGs, as well as to the Agenda 2063 of the Inclusive Africa.
Monga, thank you so much. I think it was very insightful for most of us who are not familiar with the local context. With this, I'm happy to hand over to Dr. Yarob Badr to speak on behalf of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe, and I'm glad to be here with some old and new colleagues in this profession. I'm Yaro Badr, Regional Advisor on Transport and Logistics in ESQA. Before that, I was Minister of Transport in Syria, and during the time between 2006 and 2011, I can tell that we succeeded to prepare and implement 2 PPP operations in the ports, and we were in the pipeline of preparing other PPP operations in roads and aeroports and railways. Now I'll try to share my screen, hopefully. Screen 1. Let me now try to put my PowerPoint presentation on screen 1. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, the first slide. So ESQA now, I need to tell you that ESQA now is covering 20 countries. I don't know if you...
Yaro, sorry
yes?
to interrupt you, but is it possible to have it enlarged a bit? Because we see like a special presentation mode. But
you
yes.
see the 2 screens together.
Yes, exactly.
Now, okay. Let me do something else. It will need 2 seconds. I think I need to share the other screen. Screen 2.
We learn from our mistakes, right?
Yes. Do you see it now? Yes, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Is it clear?
Beautiful. Perfect.
Okay. So now I lost the vision. I can't see anything. So if anything happened, please inform me by voice, because I lost the vision of the screen.
Noted.
So in ESQA now we are covering 20 countries out of the 22 countries that form the League of Arab States. We have almost all the countries of the League of Arab States under ESQA region, except Djibouti and Comoro Island. In this region, we are dealing with PPP through the cluster called Shared Economic Prosperity Cluster. And we don't have the rich experience that was presented by our colleague Claudio and Monga. We have few experience in providing advisory missions and capacity buildings on PPP at both national and regional level. For the national levels, I can mention the Port Mubarak in Kuwait, and recently the Port of Beirut after the blast, where we provided advisory service to the port and the Ministry of Transport and Public Works to rebuild the port better, with one option was the PPP model. In addition to these direct PPP related mission, I can mention that PPP is embedded in many capacity building workshops that we implemented on transport strategic planning and asset management, especially for Kuwait, Palestine, and Syria recently. As I mentioned, we have a few people in this cluster that can do on transport and PPP. So thanks to the valuable cooperation and assistance that we receive from our colleague in the UNECE, in the ISDB, and the WAPPP, I think that the first photo that you see clarify. At least we have the 3 representatives of ECE and WAPPP and the Islamic Development Bank with us, that was concerning the Kuwait port. Now, from this modest and maybe a small experience, I would like to share with you some points addressing 3 false perceptions of PPP that we frequently see when making this PPP mission in the region. The first false impression is that the responsibility of the public sector ends with the signature of the PPP contract, and then the public sector can stay comfortable and say it is up to the private sector to do the work, which is not true at all. Of course, all of you knows, but as I said, this is a problem that we faced in the region. And we were forced to insist on the fact that the engagement of the public sector does not at all end with the signature of the PPP contract. PPP is all about a long-time sustainable partnership between the public sector and the private sector, with all the good willingness and the time needed to follow the operation till the end. The second false impression in some of the countries where there is a risk of, let's say, corruption, and PPP is envisaged as a solution to avoid this corruption, saying, look, let's go to the private sector and we will improve the efficiency and effectiveness through the private sector. And this is also very wrong. And we always insist to clarify that the PPP operations need a very sound and healthy and accountable legal environment before that we go to PPP. Otherwise, you will see all your public asset lost with the greedy appetite of a private sector ready to bite the public assets with under-evaluated price, etc., etc. So in these cases, don't go. We always say that don't go to PPP unless you prepare the environment and the accountability and the governance system to be ready for this. And the third point, PPP, of course, is sometimes conceived as a magic, easy solution to solve all problems of public expenditure. And we insist to explain that PPP preparation and implementation need solid preparation and need highly qualified public servants. The problem in the region that these highly qualified public servants in PPP are very few. There is a critical need for advisory and capacity building of the public sector in this field of the PPP. And here I arrived to the end, saying that I put together all the qualification of an independent, decent, qualified international advisory and consultant service to support operation on PPP on all life cycle, from the planning to the design, to the bid, to the assessment, to the launch of the operation, to the litigation management, to the termination and transfer. And I am glad that with this endeavor we are doing together since few years now, there is a strengthening of the cooperation between the UN regional commissions and the PPP professionals through the WAPPP and through our colleagues that are more advanced, and through some of the multilateral development banks that are involved in this field. I think that together, this is my main takeaway, together we can do a lot to support countries in preparing and implementing solid and sustainable PPP operation. I will stop here. I'll be ready to answer any questions if raised. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Again. Thank you so much, Dr. Yarob, for this excellent overview of what is happening in your region in terms of PPPs. I would now like to ask our colleagues from Santiago de Chile, from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, to come on stage and to share with us what is being done in the ECLAC region in terms of PPPs. The floor is yours. You just need to activate your mic if you want to speak.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much again. Good morning for us. Good afternoon. For you, I am Ricardo Sanchez, head of the Logistics and Infrastructure section at the United Nations ECLAC. And okay, let me say that one of the structural problems that hinders future development in Latin America is a lack of infrastructure investment. Since the 80s, when investment in economic infrastructure ceased to be almost entirely public, the private sector has played an important role, at times accounting for about 33% to 50% of the total investment. Such investments mainly take the form of concessions contract or other forms of public-private partnerships. Traditional PPP initiatives for the provision and financing of infrastructure services have had varying success, resulting in contrasting perceptions of their performance and the services they have provided. Given how important PPPs have increasingly become, it is important that the various problems are solved in a way that enables them to make a more effective contribution to development. This issue is in the core of our main concerns about infrastructure as an obstacle to the development, or lack of infrastructure as an obstacle to the development, and the PPPs as a key instrument to filling the gap. My colleague, Janet, will address our research on the low investment in infrastructure that characterize Latin America, as well as on the role of private investment, the need to abound in resilient infrastructure through PPPs, on the approach through the incomplete contracts theory, and the potential use of the people first principle in PPPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I have a presentation. Sorry.
It may help to convert it to a PDF.
No, the problem is that I put in the cloud. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe
I think
You cannot find, ¿no puedes encontrarla, Janet?
no, o sea,
Mira, si es PowerPoint, abre PowerPoint y trata de abrirlo desde allí, hacer un open. Probablemente si la manejaste recién, la tienes a mano.
Sí, la tengo abierta.
Ya, encontraste entonces en PowerPoint directamente sobre el open. Vas y en la lista de archivos puedes encontrarla directamente.
Sí, pero la tengo abierta y no la puedo compartir porque cuando...
Ahora mira, abajo, en la línea de abajo, tienes un icono al lado del micrófono, que es una flecha hacia arriba, aprieta allí.
Sí, presento tu audio.
Entonces selecciona ahora la window o la pantalla donde la tienes.
No me funciona.
Me la puedes mandar o a Claudio y la compartimos para ti.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Por email. Gracias. So we're going to fix this. We're sending the email so we can help Jeanette with the challenges of having all these regions come together, but it's still a great opportunity to convene and to be able to understand. I think it's very interesting for most of us PPP professionals to understand what are the priorities in the respective regions. And maybe next time we'll even be able to unite all the 5 commissions if we plan it with a bit more time ahead. ¿Ya lo mandaste?
No, because the program says not responding.
Maybe it's program overload. Yeah. Well, maybe from your mind, you can tell us what are your priorities together with Ricardo. Do we make best use of our time together?
Yes. If possible, I prefer to try one more time.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. In the meantime, let me say that UNECLAC and in particular our team of work, we have a long history working on infrastructure issues, especially related to transport infrastructure. But in the case of Jeanette, her scope is broad, yeah, because she is the expert on infrastructure investment in Latin America, but including all economic infrastructures. Then we have a website called infralatam.info that contains all information of 20 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean about the historic investment on infrastructure as a percentage of the GDP, both in absolute figures and relative figures. Then I don't know, Jeanette, if you are ready.
Yes, I sent the presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
I've received it.
Is it
go
you,
ahead,
JC?
Jojo. Please
okay,
go ahead.
give me just a second. I'm just saving it. I will launch it. Okay, just a second.
Thank you very much.
I trust Claudio. He's the presentation ninja. He's got much more experience with that than I do.
I got it. Yeah, just a second. Just a second.
Okay.
So I'm there, and now I'm going to launch it from my computer.
We have a couple of minutes left in this session before the next session starts, because we have a slight overlap with a PPP unit presentation for Rwanda. So please take the time you need for the presentation, but let's also be
I'm there.
mindful.
I'm going now. Just a second. Let me close mine to avoid having it in the process. Now I'm coming.
Well, if you want,
it's there.
I can start anyway.
So it's there, Janet. Can you see it? No.
No,
Yes,
no, because my I have a problem, and my screen is almost all black. But I'm
Okay,
I'm going to start with
what
the
about the
second.
others? Can you see the
Yes,
presentation on the screen?
perfectly. We can see
Okay,
it perfectly.
okay, good. Can you see my presentation, Jeanette? Is it possible for you to
No,
see it?
but don't worry.
Stop sharing.
I'm
Stop sharing. I think you are still sharing from your computer.
maybe, but I in this case I think I have to log out and enter again because it didn't work.
Okay, maybe Ricardo, can you see it?
Yes, yes, yes. Ok. Janet, tú puedes salir y volver a entrar. Mientras tanto, yo voy haciendo la
Yes.
presentación. Okay, let me talk about this slide. Is the historic evolution of investments in Latin America and the Caribbean, both for private sector, coming from private sector or public sector. As you can see, the investment in general terms in Latin America are very low, no more than 1 to 2% of the GDP. It is really, really very low for the needs of Latin America to the development. And as you can see in the past, especially during the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, the private investment are almost 50% of the total investment in infrastructure in Latin America. But later, the investment in the best of cases was no more than 2 to 2.2% of the GDP. Then there is, I think, there is a symptom of the economic development in Latin America, where the total investment in the economy is it is, for instance, Asia investments. Yeah, investment as economic aggregate is no more than 20% of the GDP in Latin America, and investment in infrastructure is no more than 2%. Yeah, then this is really a bottleneck to the development. I don't know, Janet, if you are ready. Okay, you are mute. Okay, go on, please. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. Yes, as to continue, in this slide, I want to say that our main goals are the 17 SDGs from the United Nations, and in the second slide, the next slide, please. We have made concrete proposals in terms of resilience, taking into account that every year the extreme weather events affect the occur in Latin America, and this topic must be a priority in the region. Every year we have these extreme weather events also with loss of human lives, economic damage, destroying the infrastructure, mainly the transport infrastructure in roads and the water and sanitation services too. In the next slide, I have to say that we have presented a proposal to the South America countries for a classification of inland waterways system. That's because when we think that there is a need for a modal shift in transport, because in Latin America, investment in transport infrastructure is concentrated in roads. Almost 80% of the investment in transport infrastructure in the region is dedicated to road. So one of our recommendations is to invest in modal shift toward inland waterways for increase the resilience, the accessibility, and the mobility in remote areas. In the next slide, we are currently working in proposals in PPPs for airships in the Caribbean and the Amazon region to improve resilience and integration in remote areas for commercial and humanitarian aid too. Similarly, we are working in proposals in ferries in the Caribbean with PPPs. Well, because it's impossible to access by land in these islands. And the main objective is to improve connectivity and resilience using electromobility.
Jeanette, is it possible for you to come to a closing, because we're already 15 minutes over the time?
Okay. And in the next slide, is for say that we introduced to the countries of the region the PPP People First model, and in the next slide, we have studied and made proposals for infrastructure concessions with the theory of incomplete contracts, as Ricardo said. And finally, I want to say that in this presentation, what we are trying to say is that with many years of studies and proposals made by the institution to our members countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, we believe that resilient and sustainable PPPs are part of a new form of governance to follow a sustainable development path. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having made that possible. I'm sorry for the technical hiccup, but I'm very happy that we're able to all convene. Now I'm going to close the session. We won't have time today for Q&A, but please join the Rwanda PPP unit that started presenting 15 minutes ago, so that they can also benefit from our audience, and please feel free to ask questions there. Thank you very much.